Good afternoon and welcome to the March edition of the Marks Group GoldMine Tips and Tricks webinars. We put on these tips and tricks webinars once a month. You can always visit our tips and tricks from ages past by heading on over to www.marksgroup.net. What are we talking about this week? We got a couple of things. Let me just check my focus as usual. I'm always so unfocused. Oh, God, that even looks worse. Oh, my goodness. What are we talking about today? We're going to talk about removing menu items. It's a long-known secret in the GoldMine universe that no one uses all of GoldMine. We typically peak at around, say, 40%. So I'm going to show you how to remove a lot of the stuff that no users are ever going to need or use. And a lot of that stuff just kind of gets in the way anyway of the end user experience. We want to kind of make GoldMine kinder and gentler, let's say. We're going to talk about removing delete access, removing all those sharp tools from all those users. Not a bad idea to go ahead and take care of that. And if we have some time, and of course we're going to have some time, we're going to show you how to use notes, more precisely how not to use notes and why you may not want to use notes ever again. Let's jump right into some GoldMine, hopefully. Oh my goodness. Removing menu items. What do I mean by this? I mean that menu items are these things. Wrong window as usual. Hello. Are these things right here. So anything under my top level menu, we're actually able to modify. The biggest reason you want to do this is that you want to take things away from people. For example, when I go to complete as a new user, I can probably be very confused as to what I should actually complete here. Should it be a call, a message, an action, an appointment, an other action, a sale, an event, a to-do? For crying out loud, what should the poor guy use? So let's go ahead and I'm going to show you how to remove some of these menu items. Let's go into Tools, Users, Settings. And anyone here, any GoldMine user, we have the ability to modify their profile, if you will, their user profile on a per user basis. So let's go ahead and take away from Dudley. We'll go into his properties. That's where you want to go. And over to the menu tab. And you'll notice here, this tree view here kind of follows the menu item view that we have up here. So this is a representation of the actual menu items the user is able to see. And as you might imagine, I can turn items on and off by clicking them between green and red. So for example, well, let's go back to our initial example. Under our complete menu, we may want to, oh, look at that. Dudley's already been cleaned up. Let's choose someone else. Let's make a brand new user. Call this Joe. Joe Schmo. And we'll modify Joe's menu. Back to Properties, back to Menu, and under Complete, let's go ahead and turn off some of these more confusing things. Let's say that Joe's a brand new GoldMine user, and what we want him to do is just complete, say, phone calls and appointments. So to make it easy for him, we're going to uncheck everything but calls and appointments. Calls can actually get a little confusing as far as looking at outgoing versus incoming calls. We're going to kind of bite that bullet for the moment. So in this case, we only have calls and appointments enabled for good old Joe. What else should Joe not be able to see? Now just not even discussing ease of usability or lack of confusion thereof. We want to take away some of those sharp tools. The first thing we need to worry about is, does this guy have master rights or not? As you might know, master rights kind of trump everything in the GoldMine universe. So any edits I make to the end user's access properties are going to be trumped by that master right. So we want to make sure that if we want to lock this guy down, we have to make sure that master rights are currently off. Back to the menu tab. So what I like to do is I like to remove some of the sharp tools. So pretty much almost everything under tools. Oh yeah, We do not want them playing with synchronization. We do not want them playing with APs or automated processes. Oh my goodness gracious me. Or the services. Or maybe the process monitor. We'll let them screw with that. But not databases. Certainly not databases. And not data management. Like Global Replace is right out. All this stuff. Bad, bad, bad. Get into trouble. Not user settings, not user groups, not this lookup wizard. Everything else kind of looks alright. Oh my goodness, look at all this terrible stuff they can get to. Okay. Now, just so you know, once I'm happy with this menu template, I can actually save this here. I'm going to save this as Joe's menu. So that way, when I hire another Joe, it's easy enough to apply this template to another user, and that works as you might expect it to. If I go into another user, say David, go to Properties, go to Menu, I can easily select Joe's menu there. So you really only have to modify or create the menu template one time. Hello there, Kay. Glad to see you can make it. All right, so now let's log in as Joe. Let's see what our menu looks like. Come on, Joe. Oh, Joe's all screwed up, huh? Case. Okay, so you'll recall that we modified Joe's complete menu to be a little different. Didn't used to do that. Didn't used to gray him out. Used to actually take him away. I'm kind of chagrined to see that. Not sure how I feel about that. Maybe I don't want Joe even knowing there are other items to complete there. Anyways, I digress. Now Joe is unable to do things like complete sales or other actions or events, which are just confusing to begin with. You'll also recall that we modified Joe's tools menu to not have anything. Oh my God, I left the merge purge open. That's not good. But nothing is available. That really bothers me that you can see that stuff, but it's grayed out. Used to take it right away. Not sure when that started happening. At any rate, again, that was under tools. Oh, and Joe can't do it because he's not a master user. Let me get back in as the master. Type in my horribly inappropriate password. Okay. And again, when we want to modify the user's top-level menu, we're going to go to Tools, and then down to User Settings. And in this case, we just double-click a user to open it up, or hit the Properties button, and over to the Menu tab. So, I mean, and what I see in the field is that a lot of new GoldMine users will get horribly depressed and just besides themselves when they start pulling down these top-level menus from GoldMine, because as a new user, well, we can only hope that these people care enough about GoldMine to start poking around and seeing what else they can do. So when you see an end user poking around and trying things, like I want to complete an event, and then you get weird questions like how come they only are in duration of days and not hours, and you have to have an explanation for that. So it's almost always much easier to just take away the stuff that the end users don't need to see. And again, that was under Tools, User Settings, and under User Properties, and under the Menu tab. Hello there, Frank. Thanks for joining us. We appreciate you making it this afternoon. And of course, as you expand these menu items, as you might expect, as you click them on and off, they are turned on and off for the end user. I'm not sure what to do. It seems like everything's working today. Okay, let's move right along to revoking delete access. We probably get, or I probably get, oh, let's say 3 or 4 calls a year where someone will say, I deleted a GoldMine contact record. And we have to replace that record from a backup. That's actually, well, that's hoping you have a backup. That's hoping that you catch the deletion of that record in time for the backup to be of any use to you. Typically, backups are overwritten every night, or at the very least, or best case scenario, backups are written once a week, overwritten once a week. So you might have a backup happening every Monday, every Tuesday, every Wednesday, so on and so forth. So if I delete a record on Monday, and I don't know until that next Tuesday, I'm SOL. And then at that point, you probably have to find an even older backup. So it's almost always better not to have that problem to begin with. So let's talk about how we delete things in GoldMine first of all. And for the purposes of this tip and trick, is it a tip? Can it be a tip and a trick simultaneously? I'm not sure. At any rate, let's talk about how we delete things, delete contact records. This big red X right on the record. And oh my God, I don't know why it's right on the record. This is like the dumbest place for this to be. Because if I click that, it's going to allow me to delete this contact record. And as you might imagine, when you delete a contact record in GoldMine, there are a lot of things associated with that contact record. Not only are there the contact record meaning the top half of the record, there's also the tertiary data, or the many-to-one relationships, like history, like scheduled activities, like opportunities, like cases. No one ever uses cases. If you care, cases are a way to keep like trouble tickets in GoldMine. It's actually really nice, but no one uses it. I don't know why. We can delete contact notes records, and we're probably not ever going to have any of those to begin with. So at this point, I could just delete. Oh my God, what have I done? What have I done? I've deleted it. Now, this delete in GoldMine is forever. Like if I go to my edit menu up here, there's no, I can undo a change to contact, right? What does that do? Does that undelete my record? What do you mean, no? There is no undelete in GoldMine. There's really not too much of an undo. So just erase that memory from your head that you saw that undo change, because it doesn't really do you much good. My point is deleting is forever. If you need that record back, now you got to call a GoldMine expert, or you got to like call your IT guy and say, listen, I got to restore the database from last night's backup, which means you're going to lose all the work people have done up to like now today, or you pay a GoldMine professional a couple $100 to actually restore just that one record. So again, it's almost always better not to have this issue to begin with. So when we're in our tools user settings, when we're modifying Joe, in this case, to not have things in the menu, we look like you recall we took away a lot of his sharp tools, like all of his database tools, all of his global replace, his merge purge, so on and so forth. What we also want to do is take a visit to the Access tab, and this is really where we can hobble or cripple GoldMine users quite a bit. Now, I will say this. GoldMine software is designed to be work group software. Remember that word, work group? Well, I used to fly around quite a bit back in the day, almost as much as cloud is today, but it's work group software, which means it's meant to share information amongst a group of workers. So taking things away from people in workgroup software is almost counterintuitive, right? One of the biggest arguments we used to have back in the day, and by which I mean, like say 15 years ago, before GoldMine had really hit SQL, was that a lot of people were just always completely fixated on the fact that they wanted to hide things from other users in GoldMine. Like the big boss has a record for, say, his mother or for his dentist in GoldMine, and he wants to schedule calendar items against that. But he doesn't want anyone to know that he's going to see the dentist or the proctologist or what have you. So we'd always be asked these questions on how can we make things private? How can we prevent people from seeing things in GoldMine? You know what? There are ways to lock people down, but it's never a great solution. What we're talking about today, however, is deletion, which is a bit of a different item altogether. So you'll see here that on the top part of this window, I can do things like remove people's ability to, say, delete records. That's all we really want to do at this point today. So at this point, when Joe goes on a contact record, he won't be able to hit that red X. Therefore, Joe will never call us in a panicked frenzy saying that he had just deleted a contact record and it's going to cost us $1,000 to restore that record. And you know, a deletion, I think, is one of the good things that we can remove here. You could actually remove the ability for the end user to edit fields, by which I mean any field on the record. They will no longer be able to say, change the contact name, or change the phone number, or put in an address. So again, use with care. Adding new, that means do I have the ability to add a new contact record? I'm really torn about this one. I would love to take it away, because what I see in my line of work is in the field is that there's always like duplicate records everywhere, right? Because no one looks for the guy before you actually add a new record. That's one of the things that I like to harp on in my GoldMine trainings, was that the first thing you do in GoldMine is you got to find the guy, because everything happens against the person you're looking at in GoldMine at the moment, the current contact record. So adding them, we want to maybe leave that alone. Required field override. I actually covered this in my last webinar. Required fields. I'm not a huge fan of required fields because it's a very severe, very sharp tool, and it will actually prevent the end user from actually leaving the contact record if they don't know what to do with that required field. I really wouldn't even have that in the mix, to be honest with you. Assigning an owner. Did you know that there's a record owner in GoldMine? It's one of the best kept secrets. It used to actually be a very important thing, was the GoldMine record owner. I'll actually show you that here in just a moment, just because I know that a lot of you people haven't seen it before. But all of this stuff kind of acts as you might expect it to. The access to others' things is where I really kind of diverge from preventing access in GoldMine. Because again, GoldMine wants its information to be shared. When I'm a service guy on the service side of the house, and I can't see a pending appointment for a sales guy at that client because I'm being prevented to do so from this little doohickey here, I might not know to warn that sales guy that they're currently in the middle of a killer support issue for the hardware we just sold them. You think the sales guy is going to want to know that? Yeah. So again, if you prevent GoldMine from sharing information with people, you're kind of preventing GoldMine from being GoldMine. That's kind of the reason why it works so well. I mean, if you just want your own little personal database, just customize Outlook. GoldMine's meant to share. It's like the most excellent kindergartner in the world. It wants to share everything with everybody. Some things that we do see here are like maybe calendar. Maybe the boss doesn't want people to see his calendar. But again, if you want your own personal database, just use Outlook. So again, all we're really trying to do at this point is just remove the ability for Joe to delete records. So now let's test that. I'm going to switch user. This pop filter. Oh my God, this pop filter. Joe can see an X, but he can't do nothing with it, which is exactly what we wanted. Good. So that's a way to take away the deletion of a contact record. What I find works very well for a lot of our clients. I saw this back way more back in the day. God, I feel so old. Was that instead of allowing the end users to delete their own contact records, what you do is you make a field on the record, or you choose a field on the record where people can essentially mark a record for deletion, and maybe someone like an admin can go ahead and delete all those records on a monthly or a weekly basis. And I'm a big fan of this fax extension on the right window. I am, rather. Oh, I can't edit fields because I'm Joe? Is that what's going on? Isn't that terrible? So again, be careful when you start playing with them sharp tools. Of course I can't edit fields. I'm Joe. Poor Joe. Okay. I was saying that what I want to do is I want to just mark a field to indicate record deletion. Now, this isn't going to make anything happen in GoldMine. This is just, say, an internal procedure that we have put into place for our company where my extension 4, or actually, don't be fooled, I think it's actually extension 3. It is. Did you know that? That 4 is here and 3 is there? How am I doing that? I'm holding down my control key. I hold down my control key and I double click the field label. That reveals the universe to me as to what that actual field name is on the back end. So did you know? Just be careful. That's extension 3. That's extension 4. It's been that way forever. They've never changed it. Kind of a funny joke. Ha ha. Aren't we dumb? Okay. So what I want to do is I want to mark this record for deletion. I'm just going to give it a DEL. There we go. And now then the idea would be for our admin lady, our admin person, to go through our GoldMine database. Maybe I wouldn't do it every week. I would do it maybe every 2 weeks, maybe every month. Go through and delete all the DELs. And of course you can just simply search for all the DELs by searching on extension 3 where it contains DEL. And then you only have to give deletion permissions to one user. Because the other thing that happens with record deletions is that not only is the record gone, and we can almost always get it back as long as there's a good backup, but then we want to know who did it, right? Who actually deleted that record. And when everyone has deletion access, finding out who deleted that record can be, actually it can be impossible depending on how your back-end server access is set up. If everyone is connecting to the SQL server with their own SQL username, you can kind of audit that. You can track that down. But out of the box, there's really no way to determine who deleted that record. So we can't even point the finger and say, shame for shame, and don't be like Joe, who deleted that record. Anyway, I digress, as usual. Let's move right on to GoldMine notes, my favorite thing to trash. Oh, I love to hate these notes because there's so much to hate. What do I mean by notes? It's not even here because I turned it off. I hate them so much. Okay, there's a tab down here. You probably have it. The notes tab. How do I get this tab back? I wonder. Did I change the... Oh my goodness. Is it special? See, what I've done is I've actually renamed a lot of these tabs, so it's really no longer clear to me. What tab is what? And I'll show you how to do that too. I think it's actually shipping instructions. Come on, guy. Thank you. Hello? What are you doing? You telling me that I can't complain about notes? There we go. All right. So let us... There's a tab in your GoldMine called Notes. And right now, for me, it's called this extra shipping information because that's what I want my end users to think it is. I don't want them to know that it's called Notes or that notes are even possible down there. All right, so how did I rename my Notes tab to extra shipping info? You do that here. And let me just back up. If you go to Tools, Options, Record, and then to Tabs. This is where, speaking of, to go to my point earlier about turning menu items on and off, this is the way you can turn tabs on and off. So if there are tabs that you're not using whatsoever, remove them. Get them out of there because they're just going to screw people up. They're going to intimidate brand new users. They're going to confuse intermediate users. And they're going to make experienced users think they know more than they really do. Not at all a good thing. So in this case, maybe I want to disable referrals. No one uses referrals. Remember referrals back in the day when that was a thing in the world? Business referrals? Not so much anymore. I digress. My thing here was to show you that for any one of these tabs, you can actually rename them. And I had renamed my Notes tab to Extra Shipping Info. And that was to kind of painfully urge the end user to only use that notes tab for extra shipping info and nothing else, because golly Bob howdy. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness, these notes, watch. This notes tab, we know about the notes tab, right? And it's the easiest thing to just click add note and say called him. He says interested. There. I made my call. I did my job. Aren't I a good person? No. You're terrible. You're terrible, and get out of the building now, because notes are terrible. Notes are easy, which is why they're used. All right. So what the notes are, the notes tab is a way to add these little notes, and every note is separate. And every note is holy. Every note has a date and an added by. Right? So we can always tell. And look at that. It looks such a good place to put this stuff, right? Like every time something happens against this guy, this GoldMine guy, I'm gonna have a note. I'm able to look at my notes tab. I'm able to see exactly what's been going on with it with this fine gentleman. Wile E. Coyote. Probably going to buy some rocket skates. Who knows? Or another thing to paint on a rock to make it look like a tunnel. Anyway, what you don't want to do is you don't want to complete calls here. You don't. Because you can't report out of this stuff. So if I'm completing all of my calls here, all of them, I can't ever run a report to say how many calls has Joe made. Because they're in this weird notes area. That they're not easily technically accessible to geeks like myself who want to run reports on how many calls happen against prospects compared to calls against suspects compared to calls against customers for Joe, for Dudley, for Justin, for Dave, for Jim, Bob, Susie Q, and whoever else. You can't do it from the notes table. The big fear that I used to put into them, you students I mean, was that the notes tab was running out. That is no longer the case, because honestly, back in the day, as recently as 4 or 5 years ago, this notes tab would start to run out. So when it got down to the bottom, when it ran out of room, it would actually push entries off of the bottom of the notes page to make room on the top. And you wouldn't even know it was happening until you had to go look for an old note, and you'd say, "Well, I'll be damned. All my notes for like the last, for anything older than 5 years are gone. Where did they go? They went they vanished into the ether. They're gone forever." So that's how we used to prevent people from using notes. Now, honestly, I just turned the tab off, and again, that's under Tools, Options, Record, Tabs, and uncheck here. Now you can also, if you check this Customize Globally box here, that is if you have the rights to do so, you can turn the Notes tab on and off for everybody. I hate to go that far, but I mean, the Notes tab is seriously abused. We have a couple of clients right now that will just not stop using it. That's where they do all of their calls, all of this, that, and the other thing, because they don't want to ever have to do anything different. And they'll never be able to run any reports. They'll never know how many calls Joe made this year, or in his career using their GoldMine at their company. They'll never know. And again, the correct place to complete phone calls is going to be in your history, because now when I complete stuff into history, I get a lot of stuff to fill out. So not only am I going to know that Joe made the call, I'm going to know why he made the call. It was a prospect call. I'm going to know when. I'm going to know the time. I'm going to know how long it took him. How long was he on the phone? He was on the phone for 30 minutes. Oh, by the way, this is in time. So it's actually modulus 60 math here you have to do. So that's actually 30 minutes. So when this counts from 60 to 1, then obviously you get an hour here. So it's in hours, minutes, and seconds. Not my favorite. Time precision. Anyone who's tried to do math with mod 60 time knows what I'm talking about. Oh, you will not sleep at night. And then we have all the notes we'd ever want here. And keep in mind that when I do these notes, when I complete a call in history, this notes area here, virtually unlimited. You could, I mean, you could, because this is a rich text area here, you can actually paste Excel columns and rows into here, and they show up like Excel columns and rows. You can paste in whole documents, and I mean, the font comes up like the original document. So I mean, there's really enough room here to do what you need to do. And certainly, you know, and right from the history tab, I can see right away these are more effective than notes, because I can do things like I can sort by date, or by user, or by activity type, or by reference, or by any of that good stuff. You can't do it in notes because there is none of that stuff. So the notes area is a great place to add. Well, back in the day, when GoldMine was a pure front office sales tool, we used to tell them to store things like the kids' names, you know, favorite sports teams that they hate, which is actually more effective to talk about than stuff you love, right? We're all joined by what we hate, right? God, those Eagles! Oh my God, those Eagles! Oh, every playoff, da. You have a great conversation about that. So I might want to put in here, guy hates Eagles. That way you know what to talk about. Or special handling instructions, or a shipping address. Or if it's a household that I have to send a service guy to, I say like, the key is under the mat. So the notes area is a great place to just store very general information about this record. It is not the place to store transactional data like history, like I made this call, I made this appointment, or I sent this letter, or I sent this email. This is not the place to do it. Do yourself a huge favor. Turn it off under record tabs. Just turn it off, man. Okay, we are just about out of time, and I hate to poo-poo GoldMine notes, but they're terrible because I have a lot of clients, a lot of fine, upstanding pillars of their community get hurt severely years later after storing notes for years. I mean, they'll start losing phone calls from years previous, and they'll start not being able to report on calls. So at any rate, I'm always looking for the next batch of tips and tricks, so please feel free to reach out to me at Justin, Justin, at marksgroup.net. I'd love to see, or I'd love to hear, rather, what you guys would like to see or know. Thanks so much for joining us, and have a great day.